I'm George Fintikakis, and I welcome you at the next panel, which is about investments in energy, gas and power. Welcome our speakers, Mr. Ioannis Karydas, CEO Renewables and Energy Storage from Copelouzos Group, Mr. Aristotelis Chantavas, Head of Europe Area at Enel Group, at Enel Green Power, Mrs. Anna Plecas, Country Head for Southeast Europe and Africa from Macquarie, Asset Management, Mr. Kostis Rokas, Managing Director of CVC, Mr. Panayotis Bernitsas, Managing Partner at Bernitsas Law, and Alessandro Cadei, Partner at Bain and Co. Each speaker has, unfortunately, at most 4 minutes time for a short presentation. So hopefully we can have some minutes time for discussion. Mr. Karydas, we all know Gregi interconnector, which will link the Greek and Egyptian grids and transmit green energy in order to transmit green energy to Europe. Which are the benefits from Gregi, and where are we right now?
Thank you. Well, the recent developments in the market and in the region and Europe, of course, have proved that the need for electrical interconnections between countries in order to feed the network with green energy are essential in order to accelerate green transition, accelerate the achievement of the targets of Europe for 55, and of course, achieving independence from the Russian natural gas. It's a project that we have been developing for a number of years. It has significant benefits, not only for Egypt, but also for Greece and Europe, because part of the green energy that will transfer from Egypt to Greece will be further transferred through the existing and the new interconnections that will be implemented to neighboring EU countries. The most important benefits of such green energy project, green energy interconnection, is that at the same time fulfill the criteria for its inclusion in the PCI-PMI list, which is now an ongoing process. It will enhance market integration, which means we increase competition and hence we achieve reduced prices. We will increase market liquidity, and of course it will reduce significantly the need for backup generation. At the same time, Gregi, with its implementation, will achieve security of supply, sustainability, meaning that it will help Egypt, Greece, and neighboring EU countries to achieve their green energy targets. And of course, most importantly, it helps us to reduce CO2 emissions. We have estimated that those 3,000 megawatts of green energy will reduce on an annual basis CO2 emissions between 9 and 10 million tons. In the same time, by bringing green energy to our country, and of course Italy and Bulgaria, will help Europe achieve independence from fossil fuels and, most importantly, the Russian natural gas. Just to give you two numbers, last year Greece consumed around 3.3 billion cubic meters of Russian natural gas. Those 3,000 megawatts of green energy correspond to 4.5 BCM of natural gas that we will have to avoid purchasing. So it's a significant tool for Greece to achieve all these important targets. At the same time, obviously, Gregi will transform Greece to a significant, important green energy hub in the region. At the same time, will enhance not only energy security, but also national security, because through its carefully selected routing, through the exclusive maritime zones of Egypt and Greece that were agreed a couple of years ago, we will enhance the sovereign rights of such zones for our country. So Gregi is a significant, extremely important project for Greece and the region. And we are now in a fast pace trying to accelerate its development, and we are aiming in the next 2 or 3 months to commence the process for the award of the final studies. Final studies, I mean the detailed seabed mapping in order to finalize the exact routing of the submarine cable, the technical and engineering studies, the final feasibility study, in order to approach next year FID.
All right. Okay. Mr. Chantava, Greece wants to export green energy to Europe. However, at the same time, is forced to limit the renewables output injected into the grid under certain energy market conditions. This new reality will continue. How sustainable is this model? What's your take?
No, indeed, it's something that we are monitoring closely the last years. I think that it also confirms our strategy as Enel during the last years. We were probably the first in the market that were strongly advocating for the need of storage systems. Mm-hmm. And storage should be a kind of a component that should be, let's say, married with all new renewable installations in the market. Mm-hmm. We, as a country, we are very happy to have a good resource. We are very happy to have, let's say, passed the crisis from the previous years, and we have a strong investors' interest these days. So what we need to do is to pave the way for these investments mm-hmm. to materialize, to, let's say, avoid any complications, to avoid curtailing energy mm-hmm. from green projects that we so much need, also for our needs, but also for exporting it abroad. I think it's very important to prioritize investments in storage. And to do so, it's very important to have the necessary regulatory and legal frameworks. That's why I think it should be one of the main priorities for the new government to accelerate these concepts and investments. And at the same time, be based and trust investors that have proven the track record, that have proven that they can invest, they can deliver to the country. Because we talk about new technologies. Storage is something like renewables were 20 years ago when we started. So it's very important to have trustful investors that can deliver what, let's say, they can promise, and with experience also in these new technologies. For us, as Enel, we are one of the leaders in the world in these technologies, and we are very optimistic that with our pipeline of projects, in case that we have the good regulatory tools, we can continue investing in the coming years.
Right. Mr. Cadei, I believe that authorizations and connections are a common pain, but there are some good experiences as well, such as between, talking about connections, Spain, for example, or authorization regarding, or Italy regarding authorization. And some months ago, the Greek electrical system hit a new milestone. It ran completely on clean, renewable energy. So, for the first time, I mean, what's your take?
No, I think that you're raising a very good point, and thanks for having me here today. Let's say, renewable are the future source of energy, and that is written in stone. It will take time to transform. Authorization and connection has always been two major roadblocks along the way. Most countries, including Greece, actually, with the last rest of renewable reform, have actually worked in order to ease up the authorization process. Italy and Spain, with the connection and the recent experiences, are two good examples, definitely. And you see the outcome of and the effect of these changes already in the last year, basically in 2022. I think that there is then further challenges ahead of us. Because on one end, we need to consider more and more renewable as being an integral part of the power ecosystem. So on one end, having renewable, first of all, more interconnected with batteries, more dynamically operating and interoperating with batteries on one end. On the other side, we need to have access from renewable also to the ancillary market services in order for renewable to be completely integrated. And then there is a further challenge ahead that lies, which is we are now used to see renewable as part of a potential PPA model, so new ways to monetize. I think that this level of value, which is going to be more and more important over time, will need to be further extended. So what I'm referring to is the ability of renewable, for example, to work toward green hydrogen, given the role and the action that they can put forward in order to accelerate the green hydrogen part, but also the idea of looking at renewable as a way to source, for example, also B2B clients and B2C clients. So coming to a point where we will look more and more renewable, both utility scale as well as distributed one, as with an end customer back angle, in order to really provide and see the system from the opposite way, because renewables are more fragmented, more distributed, more flexible ultimately to be managed if the grid is properly designed. So authorization and connection are definitely two open points, and Greece has done a great path forward, including the PPA system. Yeah, so a lot has been done, but if we look forward and if we look 20 years down the road, there are more challenges to be added around the monetization, up to the point where we need to start thinking about a system that will work exactly the other way around, not from the production, but from the client back.
I see. Mrs. Plecas, Macquarie holds a 49% stake at Hedno, right? Hellenic Electricity Distribution Network operator. So which opportunities and challenges does Macquarie see in the Greek market? Is it that Greece wants to become a net exporter, a net energy, clean energy, green exporter of green electricity to Central Europe?
But that's not a challenge, that's an opportunity, I think. So as you know, to date, we have done one investment in Greece. We acquired 49% stake of Indedie from PPC. It's been a great investment so far. We look at the energy sector as a whole, so we're open to invest in other segments, especially in production and especially in renewables. I think in terms of what are the challenges, I don't see any difference in challenges we face in Greece compared to some other markets we're looking to invest in, especially at the region. I think Greece has actually gone through a number of reforms that have prepared the market to be very good for foreign investors like ourselves. We have a very good dialogue with the Greek government for the last couple of years, but also with the other stakeholders who are involved in the sector. When it comes to Hedno, there is a big capex planned for various reasons, including being able to add more electricity to the grid without causing any disbalances to the system, as well as the rollout of smart meters that we're currently undergoing. So there will be a number of things to do, but we're also very focused on the consumers, on making the tariffs stay affordable, and that's something we take into consideration as well. So we're working towards, with the Hedno management, with the Greek government, towards investing into a system that's sustainable and affordable for all.
Right. Mr. Rokas, CVC's strategy, I mean, we all know that CVC has a 10% stake at Public Power Corporation, and that CVC's strategy is to invest in high quality and stable businesses. So give us your view. How do you see the acquisition of Enel Romania, of the stake at Enel Romania by PPC?
Well, thanks for having me. And thanks for bringing up PPC. I think it's one of the portfolio companies that have gone through quite an experience in the past 2 years since we invested. We invested in December or November of 2021. We invested because of the quality of the management, because of an aspirational business plan that they had, and that business plan is basically to transition from a traditional utility into a green energy company and a modern company, a digitalized company. And we knew that as we are an all-weather investor, we are an investor that's adaptable and patient, and long-term, that there will be bumps along the period of us holding it, and that there will be issues which we can withstand, and we can help the company go through a recovery and come out of a crisis stronger and better. Now, the past 2-3 years have definitely not missed in terms of bringing issues. It would be hard for us to imagine the war in Europe. It would be hard to imagine that would also have as a next challenge the issues with energy, the issues with commodities, but that did not stop. The management didn't stop PPC to continue their business plan. And part of the business plan was to expand both in renewables and to do that regionally and not just in Greece. So Enel Romania was something that they had in the business plan and they signed earlier this year, which is something that we're very happy and supportive of. So it's something that management, despite all of what's going on in the market, politically, strategically, and from an energy crisis, they are implementing their business plan. And it's not just the acquisition of Enel Romania, because one of the very big points that they had raised and components of their business plan was just organic deployment of CapEx into, one is obviously Hedno, and the other one is in renewables. So when we entered versus where they are now, they have quadrupled their res that's operating in the country. So we entered, it was about 150 megawatts. Now it's over 600, and along with that, they have built a pipeline of over 4 gigawatts. This is something that really matters to them, and of course, it really matters to the country and the region. And just to have a reference here, as Churchill once said, that you should never lose good crisis. And this is a good crisis for PPC, and not just PPC. I think it's something that's good for the sector in Greece, and it's good for Greece. So realizing it and taking advantage of it matters. And I think others also mentioned, it's not just the renewables, it's the networks that you will need, the local networks in terms of distribution and transition, but also the interconnections. It will be the traditional green energy, which PPC has presence across the 4 traditional ones of wind and solar and hydros. But you also need to see the next step of batteries, offshore wind, and that's something to be able to participate and really promote both at the PPC level, but also on the government level and across Greece, which I think is happening. So we are here to support this. We have made our investment, and we will continue investing in our country. We will continue investing in the sector, and from here on, just onwards and upwards.
Do you see PPC becoming a leader in the region, a leading company in this?
I think it's something that they announced and committed to when they announced their strategic plan back in 2021, when they raised the capital and we entered as a shareholder, where we now own 10%, and they have been delivering it. And again, it's not just in Greece, it's in the region. It's what they had in the strategic plan, and despite of what is going on in the markets, they are continuing. Of course, that comes from a very driven and strong management, but also support that you get from the state as well. Of course, the government had to intervene when power prices and commodity prices went where they were, but I think it was done in a way that actually it helps all stakeholders, some short term, some longer term.
Okay, so Mr. Bernitsas, which are the main challenges, which are the key policy priorities for the green transition in Greece and at the European level?
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to state, first of all, that there is a huge progress that has been made with regard, let's say, to the upgrading of Greece as a hub, etc. having heard yesterday Senator Bob Menendez and also Mr. Watsa, I think it is very clear that Greece is becoming a hub for the southeastern area. Everything has been going well because there is a large focus of international investors in Greece. The legislation has been simplified immensely, and everything seems to go, let's say, in the right direction, especially for, I think, as we say, and as everybody says, for the next 4 to 5 years. Now, of course, there are challenges. And the challenges that you have in Greece are, in the first place, bureaucracy, which is always an issue. You have also the fact that the regulatory authority has been overburdened with additional competences which have to do with water and sewerage. And of course, it's not very nice to just apply for a green energy project and go to the authority that is dealing with the sewerage system, apart from the fact that it is a completely different sector that needs a completely different regulatory framework. The other thing is that, of course, the grid is saturated. This is a huge problem. With regard, we have quite many, to be honest, many applications for licensing procedures and also for the connection to the grid. But unfortunately, due to the fact that the grid is saturated, this cannot happen. And again, unfortunately, the government changes the priorities with regard to the system connections. And as a result, this may cause frustration to international investors. There is another issue which is very important, which has been mentioned also, the storage system, which needs yet to be, let's say, become more advanced. The offshore parks, energy parks, are, despite the fact that they have been legislated, the secondary legislation that needs to be enacted has been delayed. And of course, Greece, in order to become the hub that we all want, has to have, let's say, the connection with Albania, Egypt, which is a huge project, and Cyprus, and well, I don't want to speak about the Crete, etc., because these are in the internal market. Of course, due to the fact that, as we see, there is this alliance of the 3+1 countries, democratic countries, this will revive also the East Med, and then Greece is going to become, I think, a good hub. Now, with regard to Europe, there is a sort of a contradiction. On the one hand, Europe wants to have clean energy and come to, let's say, to net zero emissions until 2050. But on the other hand, they want to stabilize the supply at affordable prices and levels, which means that these are two conflicting, let's say, priorities, and it's an expensive exercise to go to full decarbonization, which may cause lack of competitiveness for Europe and also loss of certain jobs. Okay. So things have to be balanced.
Thank you very much. Hopefully, I believe we have some 5 minutes time for a short comment or discussion. Mr. Karydas, please.
Well, let me conclude by saying that regarding Gregi, now we are in the heart of its evaluation to become included in the next PCI PMI list of the European Commission, which will help it accelerate its permitting and its implementation, which is important for the whole region.
Which will be on June, right?
The shortlist will be announced in June, but this will be finalized end of this year because it has to be ratified by the European Parliament. Last week, within the formal process evaluation was a regional meeting where we presented to the committee the benefits and the merits of the project. And within this such formal process, the representatives of all involved countries were present. And we are proud that all representatives of all involved countries, namely Egypt, Greece, and Bulgaria, as well as the representative of the Greek Regulatory Authority, gave the support to GREGI, and only to GREGI as an electrical interconnection project between Greece and Egypt, which means it's a very strong vote of confidence to GREGI and proof that the whole concept of GREGI, its design, its characteristics are appreciated by the involved countries. So we are confident that also the European Committee will appreciate the benefits that GREGI will bring to Europe in its effort to achieve energy security and independence from natural gas. So we're proceeding fast pace.
Okay.
As I said, GREGI is an iconic project whose benefits extend far beyond the borders of Greece. So it will be very important, yes, all this process that we're trying to accelerate and seeing its implementation earlier in the future, because will represent extremely huge benefits for the country.
Right. Mr.
Let me conclude by thanking the organizers for this important forum and the invitation to talk about this very important project.
Okay, Mr. Chantavas, what about this overwhelming number of green energy projects in Greece having producer certificates?
No, I think the government is already trying to filter out many of these surplus projects. I think that in my first comments I highlighted the need to go faster and in a more decisive way in the energy storage systems. We started developing these projects and highlighting the need for these 4 years ago, and today we are still, let's say, starting the first auction that is, let's say, about to happen in the next months. Now I think that it's important to acknowledge that in the short term, we will start valorizing more the real generation from renewables rather than the installed capacity from renewables. And that's why we need to be more strategic and more innovative. And on this, we have already contributed from our side with different opinions on repowering and the need to coexist technologies in the same facilities, in existing facilities, in hybridization of projects. And we also wait for the necessary steps by the government to that direction.
All right. Mr. Cadei, you mentioned earlier PPA development. I mean, should we facilitate PPA development as still emerging through a centralized, organized PPA platform?
Yeah, the answer is yes, and I think that this is a way to go on one end toward a more stable, sustainable, and cheaper way to source, especially for B2B clients, their own energy on one end. It's a way to hedge their own production cost with a stable, more predictable cost structure. And I would also move further down the road saying or getting to a point where at some stage we will start considering the retail sector a big, huge PPA model. Because the reality is, and that is the end game by which you really integrate renewable storages with a supporting grid into an integrated ecosystem that serve the end client. So that is the end game. So PPA, corporate PPA are definitely a starting point. Having a platform provide enough transparency to the market and liquidity for this type of asset to be traded. But I think that the further step down the road is really around the way to monetize more in a more advanced way.
Okay, Mrs. Plecas?
Maybe my final words would be, we're a long-term investor. We believe in the fundamentals of the Greek economy. We're evaluating a number of opportunities. Some of them are in the public domain, in the sectors of transport, as well as internal interconnectors. We believe Greece has an important role to play becoming an energy hub, and an energy transition leader in this region. And I hope Macquarie will be part of that solution.
And your final words, Mr. Bernitsa, and Mr.
I will
Rokas.
say 2 words.
Yeah.
After what I've heard, it's music to my ears. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Rokas?
No, I will say the same, that there's a real opportunity for the country here, and we should make the most of it. We can suddenly become a green energy exporter, which is something that we should take advantage and make sure that we can deliver.
Okay, I'm afraid our time is up. We're entering the deep waters of green transition, and the task is becoming complex. I thank you all for your participation.
Thank you.
And thank you, the audience, for watching.